National Public Radio, NPR, where the news is what we say is the news.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
Good morning, John Combest.
I'm so happy it's Tuesday.
You got my old line there. John, the intro, we had the NPR intro there coming in. It's interesting. Hold on a minute. I got to clear my voice. Here we go again. Over the weekend, my listening to St. Louis Public Radio, and they're crowing about the fact that they raised so much money in their latest fund drive that they don't need that Corporation for Public Broadcasting money anymore. Don't you feel good about that, John?
Did they really help that?
Oh, you know what? Right off the bat, John?
Yeah.
You got funky on there. We may have to redial. Talk a little bit for a minute for me.
Okay. Did they really say that they raised so much money that they don't need help anymore?
Well, they didn't say they needed Corporation for Public Broadcasting, but they give this thing, and you're ensuring that you're going to continue with fact-based news reporting when the reporters report something. I'm telling you, the only guy that I see that works over there is Jason Rosenbaum. They got 34 people in a newsroom, and he's the only guy you see doing anything. I don't get it. You know,
maybe that's all that we see online, Brad. Maybe on air they have folks that actually. Danny Wissentowski helps produce the show. There's some other content creators that produce some stuff.
John, he does 1 hour a day of the noon show. That's it.
So he's on the Brad. So he's on the Brad Hildebrand schedule of 1 hour a day on the air.
You know, if people knew, John, I've said this to you before, and this is a compliment. This is the high point of my day because from this point after 8 o'clock, it gets tough. I got to go make sales calls. I got to go fix transmitters. I got to go deal with bankers. And yesterday, go to the doctor again. Don't ask me how my prostate thing's going because it's not going well, to be honest with you. But that's a whole other story. But anyway, John Combest, that's his voice right there. Every single day of his life for the past 34 years now. Hold it, is it 34 or 24?
We don't need to exaggerate, Brad. It's somewhere between 4 and 34. Let's say that.
24 years, puts together this incredible list that you can find at johncombest.com. His spelling of his name is Combest, johncombest.com. And all you have to do is go there and click on a couple of links, and bang, you will be informed about all the important stuff you should know about. Now, the problem is he's got dozens of things on there, and what we do is John culls it down. Excuse me. We use the current term that everybody's using. John curates his...
Curated? It's curated.
He curates his website, and we bring in this guy who helps with the curation. Your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And how do we curate it? What do we start off with?
In third place.
Hey, we try to be accurate on this show, Brad, and sometimes we make misstatements. Let me be more honorific here. I make misstatements. On Friday, we talked about the news that St. Louis hometown boy Scott Leindecker and his new group have purchased Dominion voting systems. So that's accurate. And Brad, I talked about the fact that this group, now called Liberty, which is taking over Dominion and is now the owner of Dominion, that they were dropping lawsuits against some of those so-called conspiracy theorists. That's also accurate. Brad, you insightfully asked me the question, so wait a minute, they're just dropping the case against Mike Lindell? I was wrong, Brad. I said, yeah, all these cases are being dropped. As it turns out, the new ownership group is not dropping the lawsuit against Mike Lindell. And to cut to the chase quickly, the group, which is, of course, led by, again, Scott Leindecker, is not dropping the case against Mike Lindell, but they're not at this moment saying why they're not dropping that case. So they're settling other cases with, for example, Rudy Giuliani and others. But what I think is pithy, P-I-T-H-Y, excuse me, in this case, is the comments from Mike Lindell. Here's what he told Business Insider. A reporter named Jacob Shamshin. Shamshin sells seashells by the seashore. Shamshin says, Lindell told Business Insider that Leindecker's history of working as a Republican election director would not halt his mission to end the existence of all voting machines in America, including those that count paper ballots. The quote from Lindell, "You put down that I was very defiant, and I will not back down. And just because there's some new owner, that he's going to come and say, oh, Mike, if we drop this, will you be a good boy and not talk about the machines? It ain't happening." We have a defiant Mike Lindell. Now, I'm guessing he's a little bit upset at the fact that Liberty Vote, I should have said that earlier, the new name is Liberty Vote, and they make it clear that there's no such thing as Dominion anymore. It's Liberty Vote. I'm guessing Lindell is upset about the fact that these other cases are being dropped, but there's no mercy on Mike Lindell. So we'll see what happens here, Brad. It looks at this point, and I would be totally remiss if I didn't point out that a spokesman for Liberty Vote is Missouri's own Rich Chrismer. We've mentioned him a few times on this show, Brad. I'll just say that if there was a Mount Rushmore of Republican communicators in the state of Missouri, Rich Chrismer would be on that Mount Rushmore. So Rich is now the spokesman for Liberty Vote, and he didn't respond to questions from Business Insider about settlements and ongoing lawsuits. You know, there's really not much Rich can say that couldn't be said in a court of law. So your buddy, who you once traveled all the way to the Salvation Army off of Harvester Road and got your picture taken with, he's not giving up, Brad. And he also has a catchphrase in here where he says he's not going to stop until all the voting machines are, quote, melted down and turned into prison bars. That's a good one, isn't it, Brad?
I don't know about Mike. I think he's going a little bit too far with this. And
no, you don't say.
Well, see, I think, I don't know what's going on. He used to run a lot of ads on national radio. And matter of fact, we used to have him on some of the programs we run here. I believe his ads used to be on the Armstrong and Getty show, which is repped by Premier. And then I believe he was also in the Eric Erickson show, which is repped by Combest. And they bought a lot of national ads. I have not heard his ads on our station or other stations in a while. And that sort of concerns me because of the fact that the interesting thing about that is when I met him out at the Salvation Army, he told me he flew in on his Falcon jet. Now, in the world of private jets, the Falcon jet would be considered like not the Chevrolet or the Ford, would probably be considered like the Mercedes of private jets. That's what the Bushes used to fly out at Spirit.
I didn't know that. Wow, yeah. That's a good piece of information, Brad.
Yeah, the Falcon. And he sold his, because I read an article about him where he sold his Falcon jet to pay off legal expenses. And I'm going like, man, that's not good when you're selling off assets. John, you're a corporate guy. When you start selling off assets to pay bills, that's not a good situation.
Oh, that's a fire sale, Brad. That makes the shareholders quite nervous. You know what every restroom and his plane was equipped with on that Falcon?
Okay, what am I walking into? No, John, I don't.
Falcon Crest. Yeah, for the younger listeners, that's an 80s reference there. So, Brad, I think this is interesting, and maybe I guess someday it's going to come out why they're showing no mercy to Mike Lindell. But yeah, so I just to put it on the record, I misspoke when I said, "Oh yeah, they're dropping all the lawsuits," because they're not.
So, I know you probably don't know the answer to this, but what is Mike proposing to do as far as voting? Does he want to have like people with those green eye shades sitting in a room counting ballots by hand? Is that what he's proposing?
I think he wants to replace the paper ballots, he says, with pillowcases.
I mean, but seriously though, if you at least with you and I, old-timey guys, the Scantron machines, there's a paper ballot, a backup. We've talked about this before. But if he's essentially even saying, no, I don't even want the Scantron machines, what are they going to do?
I think they go to the old Xerox machine and they make a copy of every ballot so that they have actually three. You have an electronic, you have a Scantron, and then you have one in the secretary's office that's actually a Xerox copy.
I don't get it. I don't understand where he's heading with this. I really don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Another cool technology story in story number 2. Can we get to that one, Brad?
Up a notch to number 2.
You're on.
Josh Hawley slams FBI for tracing his and other GOP legislators' cell phones. This piece is brought to us by Joe Holliman of the Post-Dispatch. I'll read you the lead. Recent news that federal authorities were tracking the cell phones of several U.S. senators has punched all the wrong buttons for Josh Hawley. Quote, they trace my outgoing calls, my incoming calls, my location, the duration of the call, Hawley said in an interview with the Post-Dispatch. Hawley wants a special counsel to be appointed to investigate the situation. Hawley says there needs to be total transparency. And I guess this arose last week when at a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, the FBI compiled basic, quote, basic call information without tapping into the actual content of conversation. And the rationale for this, as I read it in Holliman's piece, is that Hawley and some of those other Republican senators were allegedly conspiring with those rioters for the J6 2021 riots. So I guess the FBI was looking at, is Hawley and these other folks in collusion with those rioters? And Hawley points out, I think this is a good point from Hawley, that the phone tracing list was not even compiled until 2023. So if the FBI story is, well, we needed to see what conversations Hawley and these folks had, why did the investigation only begin in 2023? Wouldn't you want to do that like right around 2021, around J6? So anyway, Hawley's pretty upset about it. And just for the record, the other 7 senators were Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, Bill Hagerty, Ron Johnson, and then I won't go through the rest, Tommy Tuberville from Alabama, and others. So Hawley's upset about it, and he wants some answers. He doesn't like the fact that the feds are tracking his phone.
Wasn't John Kennedy on that list as well, too, from Louisiana? Was he on there? I thought.
Let me see.
Because it would be.
He was not, because they couldn't determine.
They said he was talking like this, and they didn't know what he was talking about.
Because he talks in
yeah, he was formerly the football coach of Louisiana. He talked like that, too.
No, not John Kennedy wasn't. He wasn't.
I know. Do you know Ed Ogeron, the guy that was the former coach of Louisiana? He talked LSU. He talked like that. That's the punchline.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, but see, I would have liked to have John Kennedy on the list because he has his pithy down home statements about why he was on the list. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I would love to hear how he worded that, because he would walk around the corner like he always does. God, I watch these videos where he's got these congressional hearings, and he is so good at these people because he walks them right into traps. You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, he leads them down the primrose path,
right?
And then he just wham hits them.
Yes, it's so good. Okay, we ready for number 1?
Yeah, let's do it.
The number 1.
The beauty of doing a show with Brad Hildebrand is that that he's multilingual. And we're going to talk about your original language, the language you speak. We're going to speak in your tongue, pardon the expression, today. Your most recent language, of course, in the last few months has been boomer AI slop. Lyrics like, so fresh it feels like a pod. But your original language is airplanes, helicopters, national defense, your original lexicon. And boy, do I have a gem for you today. Eric Schmitt, as part of the latest defense bill, more accurately, the 2026 National Defense Authorization Act, is bringing home the bacon to Missouri, but not just Missouri, to Boeing and to St. Louis. Brad, I'm going to speak your language here, and I'm going to try to get these right, and then we'll get your reaction of which of these are the most valuable in your opinion. So for the St. Louis area, Schmitt brought home $500 million for production of F-47s in St. Louis, $459 million for something called an MQ-25 Stingray. $576 million to modernize and sustain FA-18Es, FA-18Fs, and EA-18Gs. Whew, I'm swimming in letters and numbers here, but we're not done. $50.6 million to sustain FA-18E and F Super Hornets in St. Louis. a cool $362 million to produce T-7A trainers in St. Louis. I can't possibly go through the whole list, so I'll just hit two more for the St. Louis area. $78 million to advance Boeing's F-15EX program in St. Louis, and one more for the region. $5 million for the Geospatial Workforce Development Program supporting NGA West in St. Louis. You can see the full detailed list if you go to the Missouri Times today and read Jake Crozen's piece. You can, of course, find that at the very top link atop of johncombest.com today. Brad, can you interpret this in a simple, common Spanish Lake street hoodlums voice like mine?
Yeah, the F-47, that's the new generation fighter. That's the one that's going to essentially replace the F-35. Not necessarily replace, but Boeing got the contract on that one. And that's I think that would be like 6th generation fighter, they call it. The rest of them are all upgrades and stuff like that. They're still making the F-18 and all those versions you talked about are modifications of those various modifications. Same thing with the F-15, the F-15EX, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think any of these services are using those new, but I believe those are being exported, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what the EX stands for on the F-15EX. The other one, I believe, is a missile that they use on one of the what did you say, the MQ or something like that? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah, MQ-25 Stingray.
I believe that is a missile that is used on one of the drones, the Reaper drone or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I've never heard that one before, but it's just all upgrades and stuff like that. I mean, except for the F-47. Now, the crazy thing on this is that this is interesting because you're talking into my top 3 territory here because the strike still goes on, and right now they're not doing anything. They're not producing anything up in North County, which is kind of sad. But, John, I'll say this again. And I know you roll your eyes whenever I talk about this. We've gotten ourselves into a position where, okay, here's a perfect example. When Trump was in office the first time, okay, and keep in mind, he took office in January 20th of 2017? Isn't that
Correct.
the date? Okay, and today it's 2025. How many years is that? 8 years now? 7, 8?
Yeah, 8.5 years.
Okay, back then, he was still dealing with Boeing on the contract for the new Air Force One, to replace the current Air Force Ones, okay? They still don't have those 2 planes done. And they're now saying it's probably going to take a couple more years. This is the problem we run into. And the interesting situation is, look at the Ukraine. If you listen to any of these really open-minded generals and these guys who are defense, analysts and things like that, they are fascinated by what the Ukrainians have done with hardly anything. They're literally building drones in dudes' garages in, Kiev and things like that. And the whole idea behind this is essentially it's just mass. It's like what I talk about all the time. Instead of building one F-18, go back and build 100 P-51 Mustangs. I couldn't resist, John. I have to mention P-51
Yeah,
Mustangs.
I understand that, Brad.
And what you do is you don't put pilots in them, you automate them, and essentially you say, okay, fine, here's what we're going to do. You're going to send a couple planes. You're going to, Chinese going to send 5 of their fighters over against us. We send 100 P-51s, and they may be slow and lumbering as compared to the minor thing, but what do? I mean, and the interesting part of it is I read this fascinating article that talked about what Russia is doing is, how every once in a while they have one of their some of their drones will end up in Poland, and then the NATO flyers will scramble their jets and shoot down. And it's like I talked about with the Houthis, okay? The Houthis would send drones at the ships off the coast of wherever Houthi is. What is that? Is that what country is it?
It's right there with the blowfish.
Right, Houthi and the blowfish. But the idea being is they're sending let's call it an expensive drone. They're sending a $10,000 drone that we shoot down with a $5 million missile. Get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I wouldn't call that symmetrical warfare.
That is asymmetrical warfare,
I'd probably
John.
call it something else. By the way, Brad, congratulations, because we've gone 134 days. If you go back to June 2nd, B Block was the last time that we had a full dissertation on Ukraine asymmetrical warfare. Usually I cut you off, I finish it for you and spare people. But I think it's been a long time, and I think that was a great description of it.
But what Putin is doing by flying these sorties close to the borders and things like that, he's essentially probing them. Not in that way, John, but he's...
Easy, Brad. I know prostate's on the mind for you,
Yeah,
but let's
is.
leave it there.
I've been probed a couple times, and it's no fun. No, he's probing them because of the fact that he's seeing how quick they can get the fighters scrambled, and then once again he's flying $3,000 and $4,000 drones. And the interesting part of this is, I read this story about how Russia has gotten this thing where, let's say you hear that sometimes 100 drones from Russia attacked Ukraine with 100 drones. Do you know what they say? Like 60 of them are just decoys. They have no armament.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. That's smart.
So in other words, what's happening is they're using all the defensive stuff, the missiles, to shoot down the drones, and they're shooting down something that's not even armed. The idea being is
brilliant.
They're using all their munitions. They're blowing through all their defensive munitions, and to the point where they'll get to the point where they won't have any anymore, and then Russia will go in for the kill, which is kind of sad, but that's a whole nother story.
If somebody was smart, they would just get a truck and spot weld some guns. And use that as kind of a tank. I have a correction with 0 minutes left from a listener who we shall just refer to as KD, maybe Kevin Durant. Brad, I need to start pronouncing Arnie Dienhoff's last name correct.
Dienhoff.
Because it is Dienhoff.
Oh,
I think I've said Dienhoff before,
no,
haven't I?
I think it's Dienhoff.
No, it's Dienhoff. And I trust this listener who has an expansive history. I don't want to give anything away. Let's just say in government. Okay? So, Brad, I believe it is Dienhoff, and this person says they use both initials, quotation marks, and other variations when filing. And also, very quickly, I poked fun at Quintin Wilson, who's the Kirkwood oldster, who's going to lose to Scott Fitzpatrick last year if he makes it through the primary. And this gentleman actually served as a director of revenue. Wilson did. And he claims in his resume that he served under, quote, 3 successive governors from 1998 to 2001, which would include Mel Carnahan, who then died, and then Roger Wilson, who served for like 10 minutes, and then Matt Blunt, and then this guy got replaced. Matt Blunt replaced this guy. So it's kind of braggadocious to claim that you served under 3 governors when you were only there less than 3 years. Anyway, thank you to listener KD. I appreciate the feedback.
Well, John, I got one better than that. I drove.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
I drove 170 yesterday from 40 up to 270. I went through 10 different munis. So there.
Oh, I get it. And did you see any Crystal Quaid billboards?
No, I didn't.
There were no Crystal Quaid misspelled billboards?
No, the only billboards left in the St. Louis area are for 1 of 2 categories: lawyers and dope places. That's it.
That's exactly right.
That's it.
Hey, I want to hear about Boeing and B Block.
Okay,